Orwell's Road to Wigan Pier. Created with Gemini, February 16, 2025, at 8:03 p.m. Published February 16, 2025, at 9:44 p.m. What are the main findings of Orwell's Road to Wigan Pier? The Road to Wigan Pier is a non-fiction book by George Orwell, published in 1937. It is divided into two parts. The first part documents his sociological investigations of the bleak living conditions among the working class in Lancashire and Yorkshire in the industrial north of England before World War II. The second part is a long essay on his middle-class upbringing and the development of his political conscience, questioning British attitudes towards socialism. Here are some of the main findings of the book. The appalling living conditions of the working class. Orwell provides a stark and detailed description of the poverty, unemployment, and squalor endured by the working class in the industrial north of England. He writes about overcrowded and unsanitary housing, the dangers of coal mining, and the constant struggle for survival. The psychological impact of poverty. Orwell argues that poverty not only causes physical hardship, but also has a devastating effect on people's mental and emotional well-being. He describes the sense of hopelessness, despair, and resentment that he encountered among the working class. The need for socialism. Orwell concludes that socialism is the only way to address the social and economic problems facing Britain. He argues that it is necessary to create a more just and equal society where everyone has access to basic necessities and opportunities. A critique of middle-class socialists. Orwell criticizes middle-class socialists for their lack of understanding of the working class and their patronizing attitudes. He argues that socialists need to connect with the working class and address their concerns in a genuine way. The Road to Wigan Pier is a powerful and influential book that has had a lasting impact on British society. It is a valuable historical document that provides insights into the social and economic conditions of the 1930s. It is also a timeless work of political commentary that raises important questions about class, inequality, and the role of government. How did the Great Depression affect the conditions Orwell describes? The Great Depression, which lasted from 1929 to 1939, had a devastating impact on the world economy, and Britain was no exception. The industrial north of England, where Orwell conducted his research for The Road to Wigan Pier, was particularly hard hit. Here are some of the ways in which the Great Depression affected the conditions Orwell describes in the book. Increased unemployment. The Depression led to a sharp rise in unemployment in the industrial north. Many factories and mines were forced to close down, leaving thousands of people without work. This exacerbated the poverty and hardship that Orwell witnessed. Lower wages. Even those who were lucky enough to keep their jobs often faced pay cuts. This made it even more difficult for working-class families to make ends meet. Worsening living conditions. The Depression made it even harder for people to afford decent housing. Overcrowding and unsanitary conditions became even more widespread. Increased poverty and hardship, the combined effects of unemployment, low wages, and poor living conditions led to a dramatic increase in poverty and hardship. Many people were struggling to survive, and some were even facing starvation. Orwell's book provides a powerful and poignant account of the impact of the Great Depression on the lives of ordinary people. He shows how the economic crisis led to widespread suffering and despair. However, he also highlights the resilience and strength of the working class in the face of adversity. The Road to Wigan Pier is a valuable historical document that sheds light on the social and economic conditions of Britain during the Great Depression. It is also a timeless work of political commentary that raises important questions about inequality and the role of government. What does Orwell have to say about the private ownership of coal mines? In The Road to Wigan Pier, George Orwell vividly portrays the grim realities of coal mining in the industrial north of England. While he doesn't explicitly advocate for nationalization in this book, his descriptions and analysis strongly suggest his belief that private ownership of coal mines was a major source of the problems he witnessed. Here's what Orwell highlights about the private ownership of coal mines: dangerous and exploitative conditions. Orwell describes the appalling conditions in the mines, with frequent accidents, lung disease, and back-breaking labor. He emphasizes that the mine owners prioritize profit over the safety and well-being of the workers. Low wages and job insecurity. Miners faced low wages and constant fear of unemployment. Orwell points out that the private owners had immense power over the lives of the workers, who had little bargaining power. Neglect of communities. The coal mine owners often neglected the communities where the miners lived. Orwell describes the squalid housing, lack of sanitation, and overall poverty in these areas. Inefficiency and waste, Orwell argues that private ownership led to inefficiency and waste in the coal industry. He suggests that a more rational and planned approach would benefit both the workers and the country as a whole. While Orwell doesn't explicitly call for nationalization in The Road to Wigan Pier, his critique of private ownership aligns with his socialist views. Later in his life, he became a strong advocate for public ownership of key industries, including coal mines. He believed that this would ensure fairer treatment for workers, improve efficiency, and serve the public interest. Who were some of the large owners and companies in the coal industry at that time? Unfortunately, The Road to Wigan Pier doesn't specifically name the large owners and companies in the coal industry at that time. Orwell focuses more on the general system of private ownership and its effects on the workers and communities. However, we can look at the historical context to understand who some of the major players were. Large landowners, many coal mines were owned by large landowners who had inherited the land and the mineral rights beneath it. These landowners often leased the mines to operating companies. Industrialists, with the rise of industrialization, wealthy industrialists invested in coal mines to fuel their factories and other businesses. Some of these industrialists became major coal mine owners themselves. Mining companies, specialized mining companies emerged, focusing solely on the extraction and sale of coal. These companies often owned multiple mines and employed large workforces. Some of the prominent names in the British coal industry during the early 20th century included the Marquis of Bute, a major landowner in South Wales with significant coal mining interests, the Londonderry family, another aristocratic family with extensive coal mines in County Durham, companies like Guest Keen and Nettlefolds, large industrial conglomerates with diverse holdings, including coal mines. It's important to remember that the coal industry was highly fragmented, with numerous owners and companies of varying sizes. This made it difficult to pinpoint a definitive list of the large owners, as the landscape was constantly shifting. While Orwell doesn't name specific owners, his critique of the private ownership system sheds light on the broader power dynamics at play. He highlights how the pursuit of profit by mine owners, whoever they may be, often came at the expense of the workers' well-being and the communities they lived in. Does Orwell respect the poor and working people he describes? Yes, despite his sometimes critical observations, Orwell clearly respects the poor and working people he describes in The Road to Wigan Pier. Here's how that respect manifests. He portrays their humanity. Orwell goes beyond simply documenting their poverty and hardship. He shows the resilience, humor, and dignity of the working class people he encounters. He emphasizes their humanity, even in the face of dehumanizing conditions. He acknowledges their struggles. Orwell doesn't shy away from depicting the harsh realities of their lives, from the dangers of coal mining to the squalor of their living conditions. He acknowledges their daily struggles for survival and the systemic forces that keep them in poverty. He challenges stereotypes. Orwell actively challenges the common stereotypes and prejudices against the working class. He refutes the idea that they are lazy, ignorant, or inherently different from other people. He emphasizes their fundamental decency and their capacity for intelligence and compassion. He advocates for their rights. Orwell's critique of the private ownership of coal mines and his support for socialism stem from a genuine concern for the well-being of the working class. He advocates for their right to a decent standard of living, fair wages, and safe working conditions. He recognizes their value. Orwell acknowledges the vital role that working class people play in society. He recognizes their labor, their contributions to the economy, and their importance to the social fabric of the nation. While Orwell may sometimes express his own middle-class biases and discomfort with certain aspects of working-class culture, his overall portrayal is one of deep respect and empathy. He sees the working class as fellow human beings who deserve dignity, justice, and a better life. What does Orwell have to say about the importance of coal in the modern world? In The Road to Wigan Pier, George Orwell highlights the crucial role of coal in powering the modern world of his time. He emphasizes just how dependent society was on this fuel source. Here's a breakdown of his key points. Foundation of modern life, Orwell states that our civilization is founded on coal. He stresses that coal is essential for everything from powering factories and generating electricity to running transportation systems. He argues that most people don't realize how much their daily lives rely on the coal industry, essential for industry. Orwell points out that coal is necessary for all the arts of peace, meaning all aspects of industrial production and manufacturing. He also notes its importance in wartime, as it fuels the production of weapons and other war materials. The miner's crucial role, Orwell describes the coal miner as second in importance only to the man who plows the soil. He emphasizes that the miners are the foundation upon which the entire industrial society is built. He calls them a sort of caryatid, referring to the sculpted figures that support a building, symbolizing how the miners carry the weight of modern civilization on their shoulders. A hidden world, Orwell observes that most people are unaware of the harsh realities of coal mining. He describes it as a sort of world apart which one can quite easily go through life without ever hearing about it. He suggests that this ignorance allows people to benefit from the products of coal mining while remaining detached from the suffering of the miners. Overall, Orwell's observations highlight the paradoxical nature of coal's importance. While it was essential for modern life, the industry was also marked by exploitation, dangerous working conditions, and social inequalities. He brings to light the hidden costs of industrial progress and the need for a more just and equitable system. Do miners have a higher level of group solidarity than other groups of workers? That's a great question that gets at the heart of some of Orwell's observations in The Road to Wigan Pier and Beyond. While he doesn't explicitly make this comparison in the book, it's certainly a theme that emerges from his writing and his broader social commentary. Here's what we can glean about miners and group solidarity. Dangerous and shared experience, coal mining is an inherently dangerous job, requiring teamwork and mutual reliance. This shared experience of risk and hardship naturally fosters a strong sense of camaraderie and solidarity among miners. They depend on each other for safety and survival, creating bonds that extend beyond the workplace. Community and identity, mining communities are often close-knit and isolated, with a strong sense of shared identity. This reinforces the bonds between miners, as their work and their social lives are intertwined. Historical struggles, miners have a long history of labor struggles, fighting for better wages and working conditions. These collective struggles have further strengthened their sense of solidarity and collective action. Comparing to other workers, while Orwell doesn't directly compare miners to other groups, we can consider some points. Many other industrial workers in the early 20th century also faced harsh conditions and engaged in labor movements. They likely shared a similar sense of solidarity, though perhaps to varying degrees depending on the specific industry and circumstances. Modern workers, in today's economy, with the decline of traditional industries and the rise of service sector jobs, the nature of work and worker solidarity has changed. Some argue that the sense of collective identity and shared struggle has diminished in some sectors, while others point to new forms of solidarity emerging in different contexts. Orwell's perspective. Orwell's writing suggests that he recognized the unique level of group solidarity among miners. He admired their resilience, their sense of community, and their willingness to fight for their rights. He saw them as a symbol of working-class strength and resistance in the face of exploitation. It's important to note that solidarity can vary within groups and across different historical periods. However, the unique challenges and shared experiences of coal miners have historically contributed to a strong sense of group solidarity, which has played a significant role in their struggles for social and economic justice. What does Orwell say about accidents and mine safety? Why are mines so dangerous? In The Road to Wigan Pier, George Orwell doesn't extensively detail specific accidents or mine safety regulations. However, he vividly portrays the inherent dangers of coal mining and hints at the reasons behind the frequent accidents. Here's what we can gather from his writing. Dangerous working conditions. Orwell describes the physical environment of the mines as inherently dangerous. He mentions the risk of roof collapses, explosions, and flooding. He also highlights the long hours, strenuous labor, and exposure to coal dust, which led to respiratory illnesses. Lack of safety measures, while not explicitly stated, Orwell implies a lack of adequate safety measures in the mines. He suggests that mine owners prioritize profit over worker safety, leading to negligence and a higher risk of accidents. Human cost of accidents. Orwell briefly mentions the impact of accidents on miners and their families. He describes the fear and anxiety that miners lived with, knowing that any day could be their last. He also hints at the financial hardship faced by families when a miner was injured or killed. Why are mines so dangerous? Orwell's descriptions in historical context point to several reasons why mines, particularly in that era, were so dangerous. Underground environment. Mines are inherently unstable environments with risks of collapses, gas explosions, and flooding. The deeper the mine, the greater the risks. Technological limitations. In the early 20th century, mining technology was less advanced than it is today. This meant fewer safety measures, less efficient ventilation, and less reliable equipment. Profit-driven priorities, as Orwell suggests, mine owners often prioritize profit over worker safety. This could lead to cutting corners on safety measures, ignoring warning signs, and pushing workers to take greater risks. Lack of regulation. In that era, government regulation of mine safety was often weak or poorly enforced. This allowed mine owners to operate with little oversight and accountability. While Orwell doesn't provide a detailed analysis of mine safety, his descriptions of the working conditions and the inherent dangers of coal mining provide a powerful indictment of the industry's disregard for human life. He highlights the human cost of industrial progress and the need for greater attention to worker safety and well-being. How does Orwell's glimpse of the poor working girl trying to clear a drain in the cold contribute to his account? The scene of the poor working girl trying to clear a drain in the cold is a small but powerful moment in The Road to Wigan Pier that contributes significantly to Orwell's overall account of poverty and social injustice. It's a moment of stark realism that amplifies his message in several ways, humanizes poverty instead of just talking about poverty in abstract terms. Orwell shows it through the specific experience of this young woman. We see her struggling with a practical, unpleasant task in the cold, making the reality of her hardship tangible and relatable. It's not just about statistics or general descriptions, it's about this individual's struggle. Illustrates the everydayness of hardship. The scene isn't dramatic or extraordinary. It's a mundane, everyday occurrence for someone living in poverty. This underscores the fact that these hardships aren't isolated incidents, but a constant, grinding reality for many people. It's a glimpse into the daily struggles that most people in more comfortable circumstances never see. Symbolic of larger problems, the clogged drain can be seen as a metaphor for the larger social and economic problems that Orwell is addressing. Just as the girl is struggling to clear the drain, society is struggling to address the systemic issues that cause poverty and inequality. It's a small problem that reflects a much larger one. Evokes empathy and outrage. By witnessing this girl's struggle, the reader is more likely to feel empathy for her and others like her. The scene also evokes a sense of outrage at the injustice of the situation. Why should this young woman have to deal with this in the cold? This emotional response is crucial to Orwell's goal of motivating readers to care about these issues. Contrast with middle-class comforts, this image starkly contrasts with the lives of the middle and upper classes who are shielded from such daily struggles. It highlights the vast disparity between the lives of the rich and the poor, making the injustice even more glaring. In short, the scene of the girl clearing the drain is a powerful example of Orwell's method of using specific, concrete details to illustrate broader social problems. It's a moment of quiet realism that speaks volumes about the human cost of poverty and the urgent need for social change. Did conflicts arise between Orwell and his publisher concerning his book, Road to Wigan Pier? Yes, there were significant conflicts between George Orwell and his publisher, Victor Gollancz, concerning The Road to Wigan Pier. These conflicts primarily revolved around the second part of the book, where Orwell delves into his own social and political views, critiquing both capitalism and certain aspects of the socialist movement. Here's a breakdown of the key points of contention. Gollancz's concerns. Gollancz, who was also the head of the Left Book Club, a popular socialist organization at the time, was worried that the second part of the book would alienate his readership. He felt that Orwell's criticisms of socialists, his discussion of his own middle-class background, and his frank exploration of the obstacles to socialism would be poorly received by the Left Book Club members. Gollancz's proposed changes. Gollancz suggested that Orwell remove or significantly alter the second part of the book. He wanted Orwell to focus more on the descriptive first part, which detailed the living conditions of the working class, and downplay the more controversial political analysis. Orwell refused to make the changes suggested by Gollancz. He believed that the second part of the book was essential to his overall message. He felt it was important to honestly address the complexities of social and political change, even if it meant criticizing those who were ostensibly on the same side. Gollancz's compromise. Ultimately, Gollancz decided to publish the book as Orwell wrote it, but he included a foreword expressing his own reservations about the second part. In this foreword, Gollancz acknowledged the power of Orwell's writing, but also cautioned readers against some of his arguments. The conflict between Orwell and Gollancz highlights the tension between political advocacy and artistic integrity. Orwell was determined to express his views honestly, even if they were unpopular or challenged the conventional wisdom of the time. Gollancz, on the other hand, was concerned about the potential impact of the book on his readership and the broader socialist movement. Despite these conflicts, The Road to Wigan Pier was published and became a significant work of social and political commentary. It remains a testament to Orwell's willingness to challenge orthodoxies and engage in critical self-reflection, even when it meant disagreeing with his allies. What was Orwell's thought process in setting out to analyze conditions in Wigan Pier? George Orwell's thought process in setting out to analyze conditions in Wigan Pier was driven by a deep sense of social conscience and a desire to understand the realities of poverty and inequality in Britain during the 1930s. Here's a glimpse into his motivations and approach. Motivations. Socialist convictions. Orwell was a committed socialist, believing in the need for a more just and equal society. He was deeply concerned about the widespread poverty and hardship he witnessed, particularly among the working class. First-hand experience. Orwell had experienced poverty himself during his time in Burma and later in Paris and London. This first-hand experience gave him a unique understanding of the challenges faced by those living in poverty. Desire for understanding. Orwell didn't want to just talk about poverty in abstract terms. He wanted to understand its root causes and its impact on the lives of ordinary people. He sought to go beyond stereotypes and gain a deeper understanding of the working class. Call to action. Orwell hoped that his investigation would raise awareness about the social and economic problems facing Britain and inspire action to address them. He wanted to motivate people to care about these issues and to work towards a better future. Approach. Direct observation. Orwell traveled to Wigan and other industrial towns in the north of England to observe conditions firsthand. He lived among the working class, visited their homes, and spoke with them about their experiences. Immersive journalism. Orwell employed a style of immersive journalism, embedding himself in the communities he was studying. This allowed him to gain a deeper understanding of their lives and perspectives. Honest and unflinching portrayal. Orwell was committed to providing an honest and unflinching portrayal of the conditions he witnessed, even if it meant challenging his own preconceptions or criticizing aspects of the socialist movement. Personal reflection. Orwell included a significant amount of personal reflection in The Road to Wigan Pier, sharing his own thoughts and feelings about the issues he was addressing. This made the book more engaging and relatable for readers. Orwell's thought process in setting out to analyze conditions in Wigan Pier was driven by a genuine desire to understand and address the social and economic problems of his time. His approach was characterized by direct observation, immersive journalism, and a commitment to honest and unflinching portrayal. The result was a powerful and influential book that continues to resonate with readers today. What are some examples of Orwell's personal reflections in this book? You're right to pick up on that. Orwell's personal reflections are a key part of what makes The Road to Wigan Pier so compelling. It's not just a dry sociological study. It's a deeply personal journey of discovery. Here are some examples of his reflections. His own class background. Orwell spends a considerable amount of time dissecting his own middle-class upbringing and the ingrained prejudices he had to overcome. He reflects on his education, his assumptions about the working class, and the ways in which his social background shaped his views. This self-awareness is crucial to his analysis, as he acknowledges his own biases and strives to overcome them. His struggle with socialism. Orwell was a socialist, but he wasn't afraid to critique aspects of the socialist movement. He reflects on his own disillusionment with certain types of socialists, particularly those who seemed more interested in abstract theory than in the real lives of working-class people. He also grapples with the challenges of achieving socialism in a class-divided society. His feelings about the working class. Orwell's reflections on the working class are complex and nuanced. He expresses admiration for their resilience, their sense of community, and their genuine decency. However, he also acknowledges his own discomfort with certain aspects of working-class culture, such as their taste in entertainment or their use of language. He's honest about his own struggles to fully connect with people from a different social background. His observations on industrial England. Orwell's reflections on the industrial landscape are filled with a sense of both fascination and disgust. He's struck by the sheer scale of industrial production and the ingenuity of human labor. But he's also appalled by the ugliness, the pollution, and the dehumanizing conditions in the factories and mines. He captures the emotional impact of this environment on both himself and the people who live there. His search for truth. Underlying all of these reflections is Orwell's relentless search for truth. He's determined to understand the realities of poverty and inequality, even if it means confronting uncomfortable truths about himself or the society he lives in. He invites the reader to join him on this journey of discovery, sharing his doubts, his insights, and his evolving understanding of the world. By weaving these personal reflections into his analysis, Orwell creates a more intimate and engaging reading experience. He invites us into his thought process, allowing us to see the world through his eyes and to grapple with the same questions that he is struggling with. This personal approach is a key part of what makes The Road to Wigan Pier such a powerful and enduring work. Why did Orwell reject communism? George Orwell's rejection of communism stemmed from his deep commitment to democratic socialism and his first-hand experiences with the realities of Stalinist Russia. Here's a breakdown of his key reasons. Betrayal of socialist ideals. Orwell believed that the Soviet Union under Stalin had betrayed the core principles of socialism. He saw it as a totalitarian regime that suppressed individual freedom, crushed dissent, and created a new class system based on privilege and power. This was the antithesis of what Orwell envisioned as a socialist society. Experience in the Spanish Civil War. Orwell's experiences fighting in the Spanish Civil War alongside the POUM, an anti-Stalinist Marxist group, were pivotal in his disillusionment with communism. He witnessed the brutal tactics used by the Soviet-backed communists to eliminate their political rivals, including the POUM. This experience solidified his opposition to Stalinism. Distrust of totalitarianism. Orwell was fundamentally opposed to all forms of totalitarianism, whether from the left or the right. He believed in individual liberty, freedom of expression, and the importance of democratic institutions. He saw that the Soviet Union under Stalin had become a totalitarian state, suppressing these fundamental values. Concern about intellectual dishonesty. Orwell was deeply troubled by the intellectual dishonesty and propaganda that he saw emanating from the Soviet Union and its supporters. He believed that it was essential to tell the truth, even when it was uncomfortable or inconvenient, and he saw that the communist movement often engaged in distortion and manipulation of facts. Defense of democratic socialism. Orwell remained a socialist throughout his life, but he believed in a democratic form of socialism that respected individual rights and freedoms. He saw that the Soviet model was a perversion of socialism, and he was determined to defend the democratic socialist ideal against both communist and capitalist threats. Orwell's rejection of communism wasn't a rejection of socialism itself. Rather, it was a rejection of the specific form of totalitarian communism that had emerged in the Soviet Union under Stalin. He remained a committed socialist, but he believed that true socialism could only be achieved through democratic means and with a strong emphasis on individual liberty and social justice.